So he was giving free water as postpaid. So, yeah, that's postpaid. Why didn't we ask him to pay for it? In any case, was the understanding that he was taking this water electricity to pay later? He wasn't made to understand that. He probably would have said, I don't want free water.
But he was giving that free water at the time he couldn't have paid for it. But now that perhaps he's growing some vegetative cover, the government decides, let's pluck a few leaves to deal with the...
How is the government arriving at the conclusion that he can pay when we still have the restrictions that are making it impossible for people to work freely? How have they recovered?
A lot of these have been relaxed.
Relaxed? People are violating it. It's not relaxation. If you find people sitting in a drinking bar, it is not because they've been asked that you can go there and drink. It's because they are just violating it. And so you are saying that government wants to tax people out of illegality? Because technically, the people are still at home because they've not been asked to go back to work. And so where are they getting the vegetation cover, sitting at home and crying?
What would have been a smarter way to deal with this if it's not to tax and generate revenue? Because somehow, revenue has to be generated. The smartest
way to have dealt with this was to have spent the monies that came to government judiciously.
Were they not?
During the election, we had monies being thrown everywhere in the name of COVID and in the name of business support.
We had physical people receiving these monies, and so that's the evidence. I mean, there was this institution.
It's not about evidence. It's about the fact that you were dealing with the concrete challenges of COVID, and you were not building capacity in order to provide the ability of the state to protect people from COVID. And you were engaged in populist spending of scarce resources. Now, after having wasted the money, you are asking the people to post-pay. That is insensitive. In fact, that is the biggest deception and fraud on the Ghanaian people. Because we were made to believe that this economy could support those freebies because it was in the hands of people who knew how to manage the economy. And because they knew how to manage the economy, they had built enough buffers to give up freebies. And people were excited at it. Now they tell you we're lying. We're just deceiving you to take back power and ask you to pay post-events. That is fraud.
How is it fraud when, like I said, physical people and businesses have been given support that people can really trace, and you haven't done an independent audit as we speak to prove that there's been deliberate wastage? The feeding, we saw them cook the hot meals and go around and share the food to the people. Maybe not everybody got it, but some people got it. The water, we haven't done an audit to say that the water hasn't been free and it hasn't been delivered. The electricity, we haven't done an audit. So how do you conclude there's been wastage? There was an institution, the name just escaped me, the one that was helping small businesses. NBSSI. They were doling out cash. We saw that.
Yeah, of course. They did. So having doled out the cash, did you tell the people that they were going to pay for that free water after all? Did you tell the people who ran out to take food for just 2 weeks that eventually they will pay for that food? The point is, what was the expectation that was communicated to the people? And what are we telling them now? That we deceived them to think that this was for free? And knowing that it wasn't free after all? In any case, if you go through this budget, you will notice that even the taxes that they are levying are not being applied in the areas where they are claiming they need the money to apply to. That is another policy deception.
Explain.
So in this budget, you would find that the government has a list of flagship programs. Okay, and that is under page 241. And you will find that government has water and sanitation as item 8, costing 90 million Ghana cedis. If you go to the ministry's breakdown, that 90 million cedis, 14 million cedis of it is going to be financed from ABFA. That is oil money. Mm-hmm. So only 76 million, okay, is what they are going to spend in water and sanitation. Here, I'm even lumping water and sanitation. But the tax for pollution and sanitation is generating 311 million. So how do you spend 76 million, and in search of 76 million, you impose a tax on people that will give you 311 million? for the same activity that you claim you need the money for. So clearly, you are not even telling the people the truth about what you need the money for.
But the fact that they called it sanitation tax, does that necessarily mean everything would be sent into the sanitation sector? Do we not have various aspects of sanitation? Do we not have plastic waste management? Do we not have dredging activities? The odor, for instance, we wanted to dredge that. Would you not categorize all of that under sanitation? You could even add drains into sanitation.
Yeah, so the word sanitation ministry encompasses all of that.
Yes.
And the cumulative budget for all that you have listed under Ministry of Sanitation is 76 million from government sources.
Is it not possible that, so we'll be left with like 200 plus?
Yeah, where is that money going?
Can it not be sent to health ministry to address the sanitation aspect of the health? Sent to the education ministry to address...
Health ministry is now going to manage the budget of sanitation ministry. I don't get what you're saying.
Maybe spillover, works and housing could take care of...
That is why you see, when you are dealing with people who are not honest to tell you the truth, you have to find answers. Why must it be your responsibility to find answers from the people who are taking money from you, and they have presented the budget to your representatives, and the budget isn't giving your representative the full picture of where the 311 million are going to be spent on sanitation? And you are going to collect this money consistently for 4 years. Even if you stayed at that level for 4 years, you are dealing with 1.2 billion Ghana cedis.
All for sanitation.
All for sanitation. And yet, you know you are not putting it into sanitation. So why are you taxing the people 311 million when all that you need is 76 million? It's a big question, especially people who are impoverished by COVID.
So to translate what you said, the proposed expenditure by the government is 76 million for sanitation and all allied...
On government GOG spending, it is 90 million, but 40 million is catered for from our oil money. You don't need tax to pay for that.
Okay.
What you need tax to pay for is 76 million. Why is it that in search of 76 million, you are burdening the poor Ghanaian to the tune of 311 million in a COVID era, when the people themselves are struggling? And you look them in the face and take money, 311 million, and you are not bold to tell them, I'm not taking this money for Bola.
How do you arrive at the 300 million though?
It is in their budget. It is in their budget. You know, there's a... The sanitation
levy is going to raise 300 million?
Yeah. You see, when I say things like that, I use their own document too.
Okay. I'll be glad if you can refer me to that.
Look at it and you understand where I'm coming from. Okay.
Have you found it?
No.
This is Point Blank on Eyewitness News. It's 9 minutes to 1900 GMT. My name is Umaru Sandam, and my guest is Isaac Adongo. He's MP for Bolga Central, Deputy Ranking Member on the Finance Committee. So I'm asking him to explain to us how he's arriving at the 300 million figure, which he says is actually the expected income or revenue that will be generated on the so-called Bola tax. He's suggesting that the total budget expenditure that is planned by the government for the sanitation sector is 90 million plus. A portion of that is going to come from the annual budget funding amounts, the the crude oil money.
If you look here, you'll find one of them, COVID-19 health levy, 889 million. Okay. Then you find they call it, just a second.
Should I give you some time?
Yeah, just a second.
Okay.
But it is pollution and sanitation, and the total amount is 311 million.
But you can't find it now. You're on page 210.
I can't find it. Yeah, I can't find it immediately for you.
Okay.
But it is 311 million.
311 million. That's what he said. I would be happy if you find this by the course of the program, so that I'll share with my listeners. I don't want the MP people to take you on and say.
Okay, so it's here.
Okay.
You find under other revenue, pollution and sanitation levy. You see the figure, 311 million.
Can I see that myself?
Yeah.
So that I can read it out.
Actually, put a pen ink around it.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay, so pollution and sanitation levy. So the 2021 budget is 311,664,116 cedis. Okay, so 2022 indicative, 2023 indicative, and they continue to 2024. This is the economic classification of central government revenue 2021. All right.
You can call out the appendix.
Okay, so the appendix. Okay, that's fine. Now, what else have you found problematic with the budget? Yesterday, you were on your feet talking about some 25 billion that have disappeared. Explain that to us.
Okay, so you'll find that the deficits that the government is running, there are a number of items that come together to form the deficit. One is the monies that we borrowed domestically from our banks, from individuals who buy treasury bills and Bank of Ghana and all of that. That came to about 45 billion Ghana cedis. Then you have to add monies that you've borrowed from abroad, external sources, in order to get the total amount of money that you have used to finance the budget. We call it the external or foreign financing of the budget. Now, the foreign financing of the budget is made up of 3 or 4 components. So we have what we call the project loans, okay? And the project loans are basically loans that we have contracted to undertake specific projects. Now, it is not the loan that you have contracted that is of concern, but how much of it you have utilized, which we call the drawdown. Now, the minister says that about 6 billion of that money was already drawn down and spent on the budget. Apart from that, you also have monies we call programmed, what do you call it? We call them programmed loans. So loans, concessionary, mostly from Africa Development Bank, the World Bank, the IMF, we call them the program loans. Now, the minister indicated that our program loans that we used was only 388 million in arriving at the deficit. But then provides a table, and this is the table, in which they are showing all the monies that they got and how much of that money they spent. And these are all monies that you can classify as program loans. So you see that the minister now says that, and you see the heading under Appendix 12B, he says, performance summary by funding sources. So the first one, I ignore it because that is contingency fund, which has nothing to do with monies from abroad. But you see, WB is World Bank, IPF, AF is Africa Development, and that is monies that we got for the Emergency Preparedness and Response Plan 1 and 2. The total allocation was 1.3 billion. Out of that, we use 532 million with a balance of this that we are yet to use. That already is more than 388 million reported in the budget. Okay. Then it says that there is yet another amount that was owed to $65 million from Garrett or whatever. It's 377 million. We spent 343 million of that. They says fast track COVID-19 facility, 130 million. It came to 754 million. We didn't spend that. So you see that is already here as a balance. But then he says that IMF, you remember the $1 billion?
Yep, the one that was given to us.
Was translated at 5.8 billion. We spent 5.566 billion of that money. Okay, the difference left is just 286 million. Africa Development Bank, 405 million. We spent 389 million of it. If you take European Union, which is 2020 budget support, we got 504. We spent all. Bank of Ghana, I won't add that.
So your point is that the figures have been understated or overstated.
All of this is supposed to go into the foreign deficit of program finance.
You have this difficulty as a member of parliament. What options are left to you? Would you insist that these clarifications are given or amendments are made?
Yesterday, in my submissions, I made it clear that parliament needs to take action. At the level of the minority, we have other options that I don't want to disclose here. And we will be pursuing those options. But
has there been an acknowledgement of this issue you're raising?
They couldn't challenge it on the floor. You remember I raised it on the floor. They couldn't challenge it on the floor. And that alone amount to about 7.6 billion. Okay, 7.6 billion. That is huge. I mean, 7.5 billion Ghana cedis completely wiped off.
But now that your finance minister is not in town, who is going to come and give you this answer?
There is a minister responsible for finance.
The caretaker minister.
And the budget is not for the finance minister. It is presented on behalf of the president.
So the government...
And so this is the direct indictment on the president. that your deficit figures are cooked and your own documentation in your document. How can you be the one saying that I've spent all this money and yet exclude that expenditure from your expenditures and exclude it from your deficit? Okay? You know that we raised a Eurobond of $3 billion. You remember? Out of that Eurobond, $2 billion of that was spent on the budget, and that was the approval. Okay? Their own conversion rate gives you 11.590 billion. So add that to this 7.5.
It's not reflecting.
It's not reflecting. They are putting only 7.5 billion as the valuation of the 2 billion. So when you put all that together, you see that you are getting about 25 billion.
We have to
These are not my numbers. These are government of Ghana numbers in their own document. I didn't bring any figure from outside of this budget.
As a person and a member of parliament representing Bolga Central, forget NDC, forget MPP, would you approve the budget if this is not provided, this information you're looking for?
That's what I've said. I don't want us to preempt what we plan to do.
Okay.
At this point in time. But these are serious matters. And you see, I've been on this gerrymandering since I've been in parliament. If you watch, anytime the budget comes, my pet subject is to go to the deficit. And I know how they cook it. And I've always said it. People sometimes think that I do politics with it. I recall when we went to, I showed it to one of my very good friends who is just joined parliament from the other side. And when I started, he said, when I was out, I thought that you were always doing politics. I said, no. I asked Charles Dubois, how can you not even reflect the $1 billion IMF money in your deficit? Do you get it?
So you think it's being concealed to make the government look good?
Yeah. If you add all this, our deficit is 18.6%. That is huge.
We have to end it here. Thank you. But is there one thing in the budget that you found progressive, forward-moving? Anything?
The English. I mean, how can I find anything interesting in an austerity budget?
Aside the English, nothing.
In the midst of COVID, what can be exciting in a budget? That is austerity.
Oh, no, but we have to leave it here. Thank you. That's Isaac Adongo. He's Bolga Central MP, Deputy Ranking on the Finance Committee. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you very much for having me once again. It's always a pleasure to be here.
It's great to see you. Thank you.
I look forward to be with you again.
I look forward to going with you to Bolga to eat the delicacy.
We're running short. You know, I never thought he was attacking, but he ended up promoting it. So now we are in trouble.